All right. Hello, everyone. We are live. Welcome to a relatively brief presentation today on how I deal with anxiety in my handwriting when it comes to making scrapbook pages, layouts, pocket pages, traveler's notebooks. I'm actually going to share 5 different strategies that I've used over the years. So, just to kick things off, if you don't know me, here's a picture of me. If you don't know me, my name is Jennifer Wilson, and I'm your guide here at Simple Scrapper. I love to help memory keepers make more time for their hobby and find all kinds of ways to personalize their experience so that it's happier and more productive, because what we all want is to be creating consistently. And what I really, really want to share today is something that's kind of, it's hard for me to talk about because I don't necessarily think I have bad handwriting. There are times when I really like my handwriting. My handwriting also is not the same day to day. I think that's pretty common. And I have 2 particular things that happen. One is that my brain will jump ahead and I just skip words, or what I write doesn't make sense at all. And then what is actually more common is that on certain days, I can't get my hand to form a letter that looks like the letter I'm trying to make. And I don't know if that's because I hold a pen improperly. I know I have whatever that is called. My hand cramps really quickly when I'm writing. And just many days I can't get the letters to come out. So it has caused so much stress for me, even though I think I can have really nice handwriting. And so I thought I was going to share 3 strategies. I have 5 different layouts that I'm going to share from over the past 5 or 6 years or so of these different approaches that I have used to make it easier. I'm going to share both hybrid and physical techniques because handwriting is important. Having your hand on a page, at least in part of your albums, is part of the memories we're keeping for others, for our family members, for the future. I know that I treasure having copies of my grandmother's handwriting. And even as my mom gets older, I see her handwriting, and my dad, as I see their handwriting, I'm like, I want to make sure I'm saving that for the future because I know they won't be around forever. And I hope my daughter feels the same way about having some of my handwriting in some of her albums. So, as I said, we're going to do 5 strategies today. And I want to welcome everyone who is watching live, as well as those of you who are watching in the replay. If you could pop in the chat box and tell me whether or not you have anxiety about your handwriting. And yeah, I'd love to hear. I see we have Grady here and we have Natalie here. This is awesome. Grady says that she paused listening to the podcast so she could come to the live. We do, and as Natalie says, aren't we spoiled with choices being Simple Scrapper community members? Yes. Carrie says, hello. Roxanne has handwriting anxiety just like me. Welcome, everyone. Luana does too. Okay, I knew that I wasn't going to be alone, and I want to reassure you that we can find strategies, and I'm sure you guys already have strategies too. And this is an important point that Carrie's making here. I do not like my handwriting, but I still know how important it is to include. And so I would say that's another challenge here. What if you don't like how it looks? What if it doesn't make you feel confident? How can you include that in ways? And that I actually don't have any examples for that today, but I'll address that right now. Is that we'll just call this a bonus tip. I have included a lot of hidden journaling on many of my pages, whether it's in pockets, behind a flap. I've certainly done flaps inside of pocket pages, and I've done envelopes and little just pocket areas on my pages to hide my handwriting when I wanted to include the story, but I didn't necessarily want that handwriting to be part of the design of the page. And so actually all the examples I'm sharing today is where the handwriting is visible. And so these are different strategies to make sure it is visible. But, hiding it, I think, is one approach. And then there's also kind of working on the mental aspects and moving past that perfectionism to embrace your handwriting as it is. So we've got lots of here. So Natalie says, loads of anxiety. I usually type my journaling so that I can get more words on my pages. She's kind of verbose. You do tell great long stories, Natalie. Grady likes her handwriting just fine, but sometimes she worries about spelling things wrong when she handwrites things. Yes, the spelling, and sometimes I just let it go if it looks nice, but when you go back and read my journaling, there are complete words missing. All right, this here looks like, Becky says some days it's harder than others. I agree it's important for others to have that samples. And it looks like Misty here has an issue. It sounds very similar to me. I have nice handwriting, but I frequently skip words or make mistakes on a layout, and that makes me stabby sometimes. Yes, don't we all get a little stabby sometimes? I know that I've had so many frustrations. And so we'll call this bonus tip number 2, is that particularly when I'm doing pocket pages, but even layouts, I always have a plan B. If I am journaling on a card, journaling on a background, I will use these strategies to give myself the best chance of success. But I'm often always thinking about, what is the plan B? If I mess this up, do I have another card that's the same or similar that will work? If I'm journaling on the background of a layout, can I cover that up easily or move my layout around? I know that I love the adhesive that doesn't get permanent until 24 hours because that gives me some wiggle room in case I need to pull everything off the background of my page, which I've done before for a number of different reasons. And so I like that wiggle room because it kind of just lessens the pressure, de-escalates the energy that sometimes we can have when we're feeling anxious about our handwriting. Okay, so in this particular layout, this is just a pocket page spread from Project Life. I believe this is 2014. And I wanted to point out, and I'll pull this out here because I know we have a little bit of glare, but my thing does not want to focus really well on these cards. So you can see this has lines that are pretty close together. And this one behind it is actually another great example. And these lines are even closer together. I have found that lined cards are, of course, much better because it takes away the mental thought about making sure it's getting it straight and also keeping consistency of the height of your letters. If you have too much space, it can just kind of go all cattywampus. And so I always look for lined cards, or I'll use another strategy that I'll show you here in a minute. This one is quite narrow. This one is really kind of my ideal, but anything wider than that, I probably won't use as a lined card because I know there's a decreased chance of success, if you will. So I always am looking for that opportunity, and you don't see these as much. I have cut off the edge of like the design aspect of a card and added it. So let's just say I cut off that edge and added it to another card to decorate it because I wanted to use the lined part of the card. And so it's just making sure you have these little checks and these extra chances of success. So another bonus tip is that I will often have a piece of scratch paper and I will not necessarily pre-write all my journaling, but pre-write certain phrases to make sure, because I struggle with G's, capital G's and capital I's in particular, but lowercase g's too. I will kind of just do some test handwriting on the side to warm up. And I can also even tell just by writing the word hello, am I having a good handwriting day or a bad handwriting day? And I will sometimes put things off until I feel like my handwriting is up for the task. Call me a little neurotic, but I've certainly done that because it is not consistent day to day. So in the same vein as trying to make sure that you're setting yourself up for that line variation, that line height, that is within your comfort zone. Now, if you have much larger handwriting, you might like the larger lines. You want to look for the line height that meets your handwriting. So in this one, I drew lines directly on the background. I've drawn lines on traveler's notebook pages. I've drawn lines on pocket page cards. I draw lines and I try to keep them at the same kind of line height for that same reason, so that it really fits my handwriting. And for some reason, I do a much better job when I have those narrower spaces than when I have a much larger space. I have seen others do it in the past where they write their handwriting and then draw lines afterwards. I've certainly done that, but it doesn't help me have better handwriting. However, drawing the lines afterwards can camouflage a little bit of flaws in the lack of straightness of your handwriting, if you will. Natalie has a great point here. I found that I like my handwriting better with a finer tipped pen. Yes, 100%. This is actually not a good example of that, but this one is pretty fine. And then all the rest of my examples here are hybrid. And I think I probably chose these because the journaling stood out, but I have done a lot of very, very fine tip, and that helps too. You also want to sometimes look for pens that flow. If it ends up being scratchy, even when you're testing it, you might end up having it be scratchy here and you end up making a mistake. I will say that I prefer typically to find a way to do over or cover rather than cross out or semi-cover something. I can't think of any circumstances in which I couldn't kind of find a way to make it work, but sometimes it would mean taking this whole block off and putting it on a new background. It's okay. Cardstock is cheap. Let's just fix it and move on. Typically, I wouldn't add any kind of titles or final embellishments until the journaling was done. And that's another point, is that you want to avoid adding chunky embellishments near where your handwriting is going to be until you've completed the journaling, because you don't want your hand to somehow run into that, particularly if you're using much more dimensional embellishments than I am here. Okay, I think that's what I have to say about that. Okay. So Misty says the Ali Edwards method of underlining always looks nice. And then Grady mentions, I love the look of drawing lines afterwards, but have a feeling I'd absolutely cross out a line of journaling by accident. I have done that for sure. And Natalie has been using the friction pens. So the friction pens can be super smooth. Some of them are finer than others and can be tiny scratchy, but the friction pens are so delightful. They are erasable as well, and using erasable pen, particularly on things that aren't heirlooms, is something that can be really, really helpful for making sure that you can correct your mistakes. Okay, so let's jump into some hybrid examples. So this is one where I had a journaling card and I ran this through my printer. This was when I didn't have a large format printer, and actually several of these are. And so what I will do is I will take the card and I will lightly adhere it with washi tape to just a standard letter size piece of paper. And then I'll use Microsoft Word to just set it up and make sure it's in the right place. You can even do a test to make sure. So typically I will just run the letter sheet of paper through the printer and then adhere my card over that spot so that I know it's going to go in the right spot. And I have done that countless times, and I would say 96% of the time it works out just fine. There have been issues where sometimes the card will get stuck, like the washi tape. It's all related to the washi tape. The washi tape kind of comes undone and the card moves around. Sometimes the washi tape also is too sticky and you have to be really careful of removing it from the front of the card. But if you have a good kind of semi-tacky washi tape that's strong enough to hold it down while still loose enough to come off your card, this has been a strategy that I have used again and again to get my typewritten journaling on a pocket page card, whether I'm going to use it on a layout or in a pocket page at all. And I would say over the years, I have increasingly used more typewritten journaling. Kind of once I identify this handwriting challenge, I still use it some of the time, but now I lean more towards doing hybrid journaling because I know that I can correct my errors, I can proofread it, and I can also get more of it on the page as well. I've become kind of a little bit more verbose over time, and I just really appreciate all the different things that it can offer me. But as I said, this can be done if you're doing Project Life and Pocket Pages too, just running it through the printer. You can also do kind of full digital to hybrid where you're printing out your whole card, design and all, from a digital journaling card, and then printing that out as 4x6 and chopping it down, or as a full 4x6, or even ordering that way from Persnickety Print. So that's a full kind of digital to printed version versus this one, which is more of a traditional hybrid. So let's see. Michelle says, I tend to get so nervous about making a mistake on handwriting on a pocket card that my hand literally shakes as I'm writing. Yeah, I get it. I feel you, Michelle. That has definitely happened to me. And I will say that there's beautiful cards that I've never used because I was so concerned about screwing it up and kind of losing the beautiful card. But as you say that, I can hear the flaw in it. I know that that's flawed logic because the whole point is to use our beautiful things. That's why we're scrapbookers, is because we want to combine beautiful things, whether they're tangible or digital, with our photos and our stories. And so we need to use that stuff. Okay, next example here. So this is probably the most old school strategy, and oops, we have a little one that's fallen down here. And so this is actually vellum strips that I printed out and then adhered to the cardstock. Now you can print on cardstock, you can print on just regular paper, you can print on vellum, you can even print on pattern paper, just printing on something and then cutting it out into strips. I've printed kind of sections before as well as single lines. I think for a paragraph of journaling, the single line looks better as individual strips versus kind of a block. But if you're doing kind of little snippets, like I've done a numbered layout before where I did little snippets, that works well together. I personally, it's not kind of my look and feel to do a block of journaling that is just a rectangle. It's got to either have the design of the pocket page card or somehow be matted or canvassed, I guess, if you will. It's got to kind of still feel cohesive to the page. And that's just a kind of personal design preference for me. So Allison has a good example here. A trick I use sometimes is to write out what I want to say on a scrap to give the size and do a dry run. That is super handy, particularly if you're not sure how much space you want to leave. It can help you make sure you kind of get to the end. I know that I tell much better stories when I'm typing because I can make sure I get it all in there and edit it to make sure the important points are there. But in so many of my, and this is a shorter bit, but so many of my handwritten layouts, I kind of run out of room and then I'm like, oh, I guess that's the end of the story. So I feel like I'm much more completionist with my stories when it comes to hybrid journaling. All right, last example here. This is kind of typical of my pages today. I love a full-on hybrid layout where I'm typing larger blocks of journaling, printing it on my cardstock, and then designing the rest of the page around that. And that's just kind of where I've come to as my comfort zone. And I've had so much fun with it. I've pretty much done this exclusively for the past 2 years, and I don't see myself quitting anytime soon. It's been very satisfying, as I said, because I can tell longer stories. It has eliminated the handwriting anxiety, and I actually start with the journaling now. And so it's so much more kind of satisfying, and my pages are more story driven than they ever have been before, because I've just eliminated the issue altogether. I will be honest here. I have a number of layouts over in my horizontal organizer where my pattern paper lives that don't have journaling, because I created them in live crops and I didn't like to journal on camera. And it's not because it was particularly private, because it would just add to my anxiety. And so that's on my list to get those done, because I just don't want to even be in that position anymore. So that's why I'm starting so often with the journaling, because I don't want my own hangups to get in the way of finishing pages. And that's why I think it's so important that we're talking about this too, is I don't want your hangups to get in the way of you finishing pages. And so just even the recognition of where you are, what parts of your handwriting do you not like? Is that you don't want to see it, that you make mistakes, you just feel nervous about not being completionist with your story, figuring out what it is that's causing you the stress, and then trying to find ways around it. What are your kind of detours around the problem, rather than trying to push through and sometimes end up being more stressed in the process? I know that I have had times where I've tried to correct something, a lot with pocket pages, where I'm trying to cut things apart, and it's fine in the end. And looking back on it, it looks okay, but it gave me a lot of stress in the process, and that's not how I want my hobby to be. I want my hobby to be relaxing and to fill me up and to really feel satisfying. All right. Natalie says, start with a story for the win. Yes, 100%. Ooh, another great tip from Allison. Okay, I try to journal in the info section of my photos on Google Photos, so it's fresh and ready when I start a page. I think this is so important, and something that I don't do very often, but to just jot down some of those thoughts so that you have kind of your in the moment impression, and then you can build on that layer later with more journaling. Let's see here. Oh, here's another good example I'll share real quick of so this is a fun one of hidden journaling, and I think many of you have seen plenty of examples of pockets hiding journaling, whether it's a flap or an envelope or a pocket. This is a flap on a layout. So I did this for one of our retreats at one point. So it's a fold out like that. And my handwriting was fine that day. It wasn't the best. But knowing that it was going to be hidden helps to relax me in the moment. And I want to do more flaps like this. It's been a while. So this is just adhered with washi tape. If I do a flap on a pocket page, it's always washi tape. Washi tape is the great binder item. And so that's a fun one as well. All right. Any questions that I can answer for you guys? Let's see. Donna says, my handwriting is so inconsistent, it actually changes depending on what pen or marker I'm using. I always defer to a keyboard. Yes, that's 100% true for me as well. My handwriting changes day to day. Trying to find some examples here in my planner. It's hard. My planner is so small, it has forced me to write quite tidy in it. It's really hard to be messy. But even with my journaling in the back, oh, that's so funny. Last year when I tested journaling in the back of last year's planner, I was printing. And now this year I'm writing exclusively in cursive. I didn't remember that. That's so funny. I'm actually finding a lot of problems with my hand cramping this year, so maybe I need to be printing. And I'd forgotten about that aspect of it. Oh, wow. This is big from Natalie. So fun. Pages like this are seriously driving me towards the hybrid domain. I would love to see you try some hybrid, Natalie. That'd be fun. All right, friends, that's all I have for you today. I hope this was helpful for you to just have some new strategies for getting past those roadblocks. Whether it's drawing lines, printing on a card, printing on something and cutting it out, printing directly on your background, or really choosing more wisely which cards you're going to journal on to set yourself up for success. I hope one of these strategies is helpful to you, as well as some of the other bonus strategies we shared. Have a great week. And if you enjoy this style of video where we can just chat and be casual and I can see what you guys are saying, let me know, leave a comment. I would love to know because I'd like to do more of these in the future for you. Take care and have a great day.